Welcome back to Newsday. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuggar, has raised the alarm over the $88.6 billion annual illicit financial flows from the African continent, describing it as a drain on the continent's much-needed resources. Speaking at the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development, FFD4, which ended in Seville, Spain on Thursday, Tuggar stated that there's currently a $4 trillion annual funding framework for financing sustainable development as agreed upon during the Addis Ababa Action Agenda a decade ago. He described the event as a timely but added that the world was running out of time with development assistance from developed nations, budgets shrinking. Arise News analyst Dayo Sobowale joins us now to plug this loophole. Great to have you join us on Newsday this beautiful afternoon. Let's begin with the issues. Yeah. Absolutely. What do you think the major cause of these illicit financial flows is, especially when you consider that there are specific industries that contribute majorly to these illicit financial flows, like oil and gas, mining, whereas there are others that we may begin to start to focus a little more on in terms of heavy investments?
Well, it's a very historical economic issue. You have to look at the economic history of both those who are pitching African countries now and the role they played. And now we got to this situation. You have to look back at colonialism, look back at the Cold War and the ideological orientation, the fight between the East and the West, then globalization, and then the end of globalization in the Trump era of economic protectionism, where you use trade tariffs to protect your industries. It is a sorry situation that those who are pitching us most now are the people very, very responsible for the economic plight of African nations. And it's very apt that this conference is holding in Spain. So Spain was one of the earliest colonizers of the Americas, Africa, and so on and so forth. And you see, it's a pathetic situation. But you can look at what is happening on the ground in the US now to illustrate it. Trump is bringing back agriculture. He's bringing back manufacturing. Whereas through the IMF, through globalization, through outsourcing, we were taught that, you see, as in the syntax of economic development, as you progress, after you show sign of progress, when you leave manufacturing, go to the service industry, you get me, and then later the digital age. But you see, that flight, economic flight trajectory, does not support employment. It does not support equitable distribution of things. Because you have in the service industry, not many people can afford the high cost there. Yes. And in the digital industry, the digital industries that make it don't employ so many people. So our plight is along that line. And you see, if you think of the time of globalization, we were told to privatize, marketization, and all that. Although somebody pointed out there that doing marketization and promoting democracy at the same time never go hand in hand. Yeah. And they lead to disruption, political instability, which was indeed what happened. That was why you have military intervention, and then the juggle to make democracy and military and economic prosperity go hand in hand has not worked. And that is why we are now. And then he's talking of corruption, tax evasion, and all those things responsible for the illicit transfer of funds. But the recipient nations are the nations in charge of our economy. And luckily, maybe they're having some conscience, they're pricking of the conscience, we call it compunction. That is why we were able to retrieve the Abacha funds. They were the people who helped us to retrieve it, and they were the cause of the corruption that led to it in the first instance. let's leave it at that for now.
All right, Mr. Sobowale, in hindsight, who are the true custodians of checkmating IFFs? Of course, this illicit financial flows, and why have they failed over time?
They have always known. You see, if you look at the economic history, contemporary economic history, these conferences are old, they are scheduled, regardless of what happened. But the people presiding over our economic liquidation are the people organizing it. They are the people like IMF, they will tell us the conditions to get loans and things like that, and the payment, and they are now the people saying now that most of our money is outside.
All right.
But they are the people supervising the economic and political leaders, negotiating with them to get these loans and to keep the apparatus of deceit going on. So I'm not enamored by what they are saying, because I have always known that these are people making Africa dry since colonialism. And what you have is modern colonialism. Although amongst us, we have our own form of economic.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the issue of
inside.
Yes, corruption and stuff like that.
They mention corruption and bribery.
To a large extent.
Who caused the corruption and bribery? Is it not through the free market economy?
Yeah.
Because socialism failed, the USSR collapsed, and then they thought. But you see, Trump is a disruptor and a Confucianist, you may call him. But I think it will make all of us to look on our own strength now, instead of relying on the whole world through globalization. Because he's trying to build American industries, and he's saying that outsourcing before, if you deal with some digital companies, if you want to repair your machine here, you see the person answering you on the other has an Indian accent. They have outsourced it to India because they have the technologies there. Now, this guy has come in and said, look, they have milked us dry, just like they have milked us dry here, even though we have no voice. So I think that will reshape economic relations, and there will be a realignment of economic goods and services for our own betterment, at least.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. Also understanding that for this to also happen, it's also because there's an understanding that it's a give and take. You know, you give a little, they give, we benefit, they benefit as well. Now, with regards to the international community that you spoke
they benefit immensely more than us.
And
they give anyway. You see them lamenting, you said, Trump stopped, you said. But that was what they are using to hide. Many people will die as a result of that. But then it will make us look inside at our own strength to strengthen our economy and make life better, more equitable for our people.
Absolutely, but in terms of, you know, the international community, do you think they could also play a role in ensuring that this is curbed, considering, like you rightly said, there's a lot of corruption that feeds into this, as well as government policy reforms? Do you think we need any specific ones that could also assist with this?
Well, we have been doing the reform, but they say he who pays the piper dictates the tune. We have done an economic reform. Economic reform is maybe something analogous to what they are saying. That illicit money is going out of Africa than coming in. Now, positive money coming in. But our reforms is to make sure that we plug the loopholes with our sources of revenue. You get me? But it's all right to plug the loopholes in the sources of revenue, raise the tax, have the money, but use it judiciously. That's the problem. It is all right to have good tax to GDP ratio. Do you get me? But what matters is the utilization of that taxation at the end of the day. Because if you don't have equity in society and more people in the economic space, there will be economic tension to lead to political tension, and it eventually create political instability.
All right, Mr. Tuggar, let me just have your thoughts on this quickly. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and, of course, the Africa Union's Agenda for 2063. How do you think such long-term developments will be impacted if these IFF issues are not curbed to the...
Well, they are the monitors. They set the goals. I am happy they set the goals. At least we look forward to making things life better for our people. But you see, some of them can be unnecessary and they waste, like transition to clean energy. They taught us on that. But if we transit to clean energy, we live on oil, how are we going to survive? That is what Trump has
Yeah.
brought out now. Is reversing everything that the Biden administration did in transition.
Yeah.
Even they bribed us that if you are transiting, leave our oil, which is our
The major source
of
income.
living, and go. They give you some money. I am happy Tinubu played along for some time to get that money. But since the EU pays the papa, dictates the tune, Trump has given a boost to globalization and is using tariffs now to negotiate and create agriculture, manufacturing company in his own nation.
Yeah.
Let us copy that to develop our nation, have international trade, international whatever. But let us have industries that will create employment for our people.
Yeah.
Create employment for our people and put food on the table, more than anything. Yes.
Yeah, let's bring public procurement, which I think is a major factor contributing to IFFs. Do you think it's important to make our contracts, what's the word now, say more transparent, more transparent to avoid illegal siphoning of these funds?
Yes, people will always look for loopholes, but the law is there. The law is there. But it is the spirit of the contract that matters. Yes. If it is legal, there's nothing wrong with that. The goods will move across borders and you'll have the benefit of trade. But if people circumvent it, the people who are supposed to monitor it, if they circumvent the rules, that's not much anybody can do, except law enforcement. We'll have to turn it. I think substantially, international trade is based on contractual obligations, which are respected. So, and that's why you have Interpol. That is why you have monitoring forces and you have adjudication to resolve matters. But contracts on the surface superficially are supposed to be kept. But if people see through some loopholes and do illegal things, it's only monitoring that can detect that. There's not much you can do about that.
All right, on that note, Mr. Dayo Sobowale, Rise News analyst, would like to thank you for your thoughts on that issue. It's good to have you with us, as always.